So, hello, as you guys know me as Psych Life. Today, about a week ago, I had a message on my platform for anybody who wanted any messages on parenting styles. And this theory was developed by, I don't want to butcher their name here, Branfordor. And she was a female in 1966 who put up this theory. And she pretty much put parenting into 4 different labels. I don't know if you guys can see that well from here, but the parenting styles are on 4 different labels. The first one being authoritative, authoritarian, permissive, and uninvolved. And parenting styles vary depending on culture, socioeconomic status, where you're from, and various things, and personality, so upbringing, which is ironic because it's parenting styles, and so much more. One of the main things I asked was for you guys to send me questions regarding parenting. But before I get to your questions, which I wrote down, by the way, I wanted to talk about a little bit about each one really quick. This is just a short video, 10 minutes tops, so I'll try to get to the point. Authoritative parenting would be the ideal parenting style, and it varies, but parenting, this quote sums it up. Let's talk about it. Authoritative parents tend to work with the kids, so they try and give enough space while also demanding just enough back to see a response. Authoritarian parents, they tend to be very demanding and low on warmth and high on demandingness, as you can see. And they tend to be the parents that they demand stuff. It's heavy control. Everything's very controlled. Then you have permissive parents who pretty much say yes to everything. They try not getting in the way of the child. They try letting the child do whatever they want because they want to avoid conflict. They don't want any conflict. Then you have uninvolved parents. It can happen for various reasons. Parents are too strict. Parents are too busy. Parents, or they just don't care, which you tend to see a lot sometimes when you're working with court cases. So let's talk about each one a little bit in reference to their questions. So I have 3 people who asked me the same questions about the parenting styles. One of them is at Maria Renicerone. Where's the other one? At Bihavia Jane. And where is the last one? At Sheree Malik 18. They asked me the question, the difference between authoritative and authoritarian parenting styles. Authoritative parenting tends to work with the kids. They have a clear set of demands or rules. Let's pretend house rules. They have a clear set of house rules, but when the child violates, it's not the end of the world. They tend to work with the child. They tend to understand their circumstances, and they tend to be there for the child enough while also giving enough space. So they're flexible, they're assertive, they're democratic. Just because the parent says, hey, I need you to do this by this time, and the child does it 5-10 minutes later than the prospective time that they put in place, it's not the end of the world. The parent will work with it. And a lot of times this will bring up a lot of good things. From research, authoritative parents tend to produce, and remember, this is nothing causational, this is all correlational. So it's just associational. Kids tend to be less rigid. Why do they tend to be less rigid? Because they tend to model the parent. If the parent is open for change while also having clear expectations, then it's obvious that the child is going to learn how to be adaptive to certain situations. They develop good social skills. The fact that you can talk about things is social. So in the real world, it'll transpire a different way. So if the parent, the kid comes home late from school, about 30 minutes late than expected. Let's pretend it's a 14-year-old. He's coming home at 6 instead of 5:30. The parent will ask him, instead of jumping down his throat, hey, what happened? Why weren't you here on time? And then the kid will give his version of what happened. Oh, I stayed an extra 10-15 minutes talking to friends. Before I knew it, I was late. I'm sorry, Mom. then that develops social skills. That transfers over from outside the parent and child relationship out into the real world. Well-developed emotional regulation, obviously from modeling the parent again and observing them. Self-confident about the ability to master tasks. If a parent sees that a kid is failing in authoritative style parenting, the parent who practices authoritative, and they might not even realize it. Oh, hey, I saw you got a D or an F. How can we improve this? The kid will probably say, oh, we can improve it if you help me on the homework 30 minutes every night. The parent might, if they can, they will adjust, try to help the kid. If the grade increases, what do you know? All of a sudden, the kid learns that if I ask for help, not only from my parents, from others, if I communicate socially, then I can do this. They get some sort of confidence. Instead of authoritarian parents who demand and demand and demand, and it's their way or the highway. So I hope that answers that question. Authoritarian, they don't tend to budge. And a lot of times from the research that I've read, those parents that practice authoritarian styles, their kids tend to be less confident. They tend to be and sometimes they'll be so relying on the parent to make choices that they won't learn how to make choices themselves. Most of all, authoritarian parents tend to develop kids who lack self-confidence. Not only because they don't know what to do and the parents are always making decisions for them, but because they're very anxious. If the parent's demanding too much, they get anxious. What happens if I come home and I didn't meet what my parents said? That tends not to happen with authoritative. They tend to be open. They tend to be flexible, but assertive. They do demand something, but yet assertive, but flexible too. So, another question. Momuksha, how do you explain the last one? I don't know what you meant by the last one, but I'm guessing you mean uninvolved. Uninvolved parents tend not to cater to their child, whether it's because of some sort of mental health illness or disorder, or because they don't care about the kid, or maybe, which is a lot of the times here in this westernized world that we live in, there's not a lot of time. Parents don't even get, when they're having a baby, they don't even get relief time from work, only 3 months. So sometimes if a parent has to worry about how they're going to put food on the table and they're working 3 jobs, there's not a lot of time to give to the kid. So I wrote uninterested here, but that doesn't tend to happen all the time. What happens is a lot of times the kids end up being their own boss because the parent's not there, they're not involved. And if the parent's not there involved, the kid has to make their own decisions. That can be a good thing or a bad thing. It's mostly bad because who's the kid going to model? The most important relationship an individual has a lot of times is with the caregiver. The caregiver a lot of times being the parent. If the parent's not there, then they're going to be their own boss. They're going to decide when to eat, what time to go to sleep, what time they're going to do homework, what time they get to go to school. Most often than not, come on, what kid's going to go to school on time every time if they have to make their own decision? Sometimes those basic values and principles have to be instilled. And if the parent's uninvolved, it can be very hard. Sometimes the parent's involved just enough. That can be a whole another set of problems. Okay, next one. What behaviors will young children exhibit with permissive parenting? Permissive, like I said earlier, tends to be more, I'm hearing you, you get to do whatever you want, I just don't want to deal with it, I'm here but I don't want to deal with it, you get to do whatever. They're accepting to the child, non-directive, very few rules, avoid confrontation is a big one. Instead of engaging the kid on why they got a low grade, sometimes the parent will avoid it. Why? Because they don't want to deal with the whole, I got to talk to the parent's teacher, let me find out what happened. They don't want to get involved. They just want to do the bare minimum. What behaviors will children exhibit when permissive parenting? Adon_Zoe. Well, the kid will a lot of times take advantage of the parent. They'll manipulate him. Well, mom doesn't care. Mom's there, mom doesn't care I got an F, so why should I improve? Well, that doesn't really fit the script too well, because if the kid doesn't care, the kid models the parent. If the kid sees that the parent doesn't care, the kid's not going to care neither. So if the parent sees, oh, you got an F, but I don't want to deal with it right now, why should the kid change? There's no repercussions. Unlike authoritarian parent, they might ask, oh, why'd you get the F? And actually do something about it. Oh, let me get in contact with the teacher. Let me see how we're gonna fix this. All right. So next question, guys. I already passed the 10-minute table I had, but let's see how much longer I can go for. What's the difference between authoritative and authoritarian parenting style? I already answered that. What happens when one parent is authoritative and the other one permissive? Awesome question. Awesome question by @Safanador. Sorry if I butchered it. Safanador. Well, if one parent is authoritative and the other one's permissive, I'll ask the kid this, or the individual this, the adolescent, the child, which parent do you relate to more? It's important that parents stay on the same wavelength when upbringing a child, or a caregiver stays on the same wavelength as the other one when upbringing a child. You don't want mixed messages. Sometimes a child will be confused and they can't express that they're confused. Oh, if I tell mom, it's okay, but if I tell dad, it's not okay. Oh, mom cares more than dad. That happens. It happens naturally. There's no way to sometimes avoid that. But it all depends a lot of times on what relationship you have with that parent that I don't want to say like, that's not the right, but you relate to the most. So as a guy, I related to my dad a lot. And my dad was authoritative. My mom was authoritative. My dad was permissive. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go to my dad for stuff, because I knew that my mom was going to ask more questions and get a little bit more involved. But if I just wanted a yes, I'll go to my dad. So it happens. It depends. It always depends. None of this stuff is causational. It's correlational. Meaning, just because a parent exhibits a certain parenting style, it doesn't mean the kid's going to grow up a certain way. It just has more of a chance. How do I know by my behavior? At Zora Costa. Well, you're not going to, like I just said, it's correlational. It's not causational. So just because you behave a certain way, that's not a good way to determine a parenting style. A good way to determine a parenting style is by watching the parent actually parent. And just because you do a one-day assessment on a parenting style, that doesn't mean it's a long-term evaluation. It's just an assessment for that one day. Maybe a parent's having a bad day that day. Let's see. Can they be a combo of the two, as Sarah Lee G_G? Yes, they can. I just mentioned how sometimes I'll go to my dad because he was permissive, and I would avoid my mom because I knew she was going to ask more questions. Or I'll try showing my dad the report card instead of my mom because I knew that she was going to ask more questions and try getting more involved. Obviously, she always found out. My dad always told her, so he wouldn't have to deal with it. Effects, this one's from Sam for the known ones. Effects of parents' insecurities in their parenting style. Effects of parents' insecurities. Anybody who has certain insecurities, which we all do, we all have insecurities to some extent. Social insecurities, for one, we all have them. Our brain's wired like that. It always transfers out. So if I'm not a parent, but if I'm a parent and I have insecurities about or unresolved conflicts about my parents, it's gonna transfer over to my kid. And it tends to happen more often than not in an unconscious form rather than conscious. No one says, oh, I'm transferring this over. My insecurities, such as I'm not a good parent, my kid can't tell that. No, it transfers over in everything. Everything we feel transfers over in what we do, whether we hold it or not. Last question, guys. _Dad's Little Princess. Permissive parenting means, I already said it. Permissive parenting, you're going to try avoiding conflict. You might hear your kid, you're going to be there for your kid, but you're not going to challenge them when they're doing something wrong. that could have great effects. A lot of times, kids who had permissive parents, they tend to experiment and engage in drug use. That, like I said, raises a whole series of issues. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Like I said, I'm Psych Life, and I hope I could get to more of these videos more often. I'm sorry I don't. Very busy lately, but I appreciate everybody who's listening. Okay. Have a good one.